Tobacco is not permanently banned in Nigeria but controlled by the National Tobacco Control Act as established in 2015 with Committee and Control Unit to regulate smoking, prohibiting tobacco advertising, sponsorship, licensing tobacco dealers, regulating product packaging, warning signs, education and public awareness programs, in an efficient effort to control tobacco from being number one public health enemy responsible for millions of preventable deaths worldwide, including thousands of Nigerians annually. There is need to increase funding for tobacco control initiatives in Nigeria under the theme Increase Tobacco Control Fund and protect public health. In a press briefing in Abuja organized by the Nigeria Tobacco Control Alliance and Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA, the executive director of CAPA, Akimbode Olufemi, called on the federal government to significantly increase the Tobacco Control Fund (TCF) beyond the 13 million allocated to tobacco control and the national budget of 2025 in the interests of public health.
We do recognize this significant legal step, but we need to re-emphasize our call on governments to a very critical issue that remains unaddressed, which is the allocation of funding for tobacco control efforts. In 2023, Nigeria allocated a paltry 4.7 million in the national budget for tobacco control. We must always point out that that was actually the first ever time that the country will allocate money for tobacco control. And following sustained advocacy about the gross inadequacy of this fund, it moved to 10 million, again, very, very inadequate in 2024. And now, into 13 million in this year's budget. This year-on-year paltry increase are no doubt steps in the right direction, but a far cry from about 300 million naira needed for operationalization of tobacco control fund. The Nigerian failure to close this funding gap has made legislative and enforcement efforts ineffective, with their consequences on public health. Increasing funding to a minimum of 300 million annually will allow for more effective prevention program, public awareness campaigns, access to decision support, reducing tobacco use, and of course lower the health consequences of tobacco use in our country.
In a joint statement, they reiterated their call for an upward review of the allocation for tobacco control to a minimum of 300 million for broader societal benefit of protecting public health.
It is time, not only, we're not saying that they should increase this thing, and then we should know, the one budgeted for last year, was it released? What was it used for? Yes, 10 million was budgeted for. Was it released? What was it used for? There should also be transparency. When these funds are budgeted, let's know what they are used for. Above all, government of Nigeria should take tobacco control seriously.
To be fully operationalized, allowing tobacco companies to interfere and also to exploit Nigeria's weak monitoring systems, and they still continue exposing Nigerians to unchecked dangers of online tobacco marketing, abuse, corporate social responsibility, and using corporate social responsibilities initiatives to gain favor with the public health authorities.
The essence of calling for sustainable tobacco control funding is to ensure that when the donors pull out of Nigeria's tobacco control space, that the Nigerian government is able to continue to do what it needs to do. And every day that the government fails to allocate sufficient amounts of money to tobacco control, the alternative is that we lose lives.
Joseph Moses, WEG TV News.